Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Busting Through Life Challenges with me, Di Parker. And today I'm delighted to welcome to you Beth Johnson, who's doing youth and leadership coaching now. Welcome, Beth. Thank you so much for coming along. Beth, tell us all a little bit about yourself and why is coaching important to you?
How long do you have on this podcast?
As we need, as
Um,
we need.
I spent my life in corporate, in the hospitality industry, and basically served as a director of operations in many different industries and so forth. And grew up, I always call it grew up in that environment in the 80s and 90s, because I started at a very early age, 22, I think it was, and I knew nothing and was thrown into, luckily, the role that I was able to start out in. But I learned a lot the hard way, right? And I observed a lot that I didn't agree with. So, I spent that 25 years in corporate trying to refine my own leadership style based on training, sporadic training, and what I was observing in other people. And the older I got, the more things didn't align. And in my last corporate experience, it honestly just didn't go very well. I am very much a heart forward leader. I believe in building people up, understanding the human behind the employee, and then using that knowledge to help them better themselves and improve in any way possible, right? That could include in the workplace or outside of the workplace, because businesses don't function without the people. But the leader that I was working for was not, and in fact was actually fairly abusive. I mean, I had worse words 2 years ago, but I can look back now and I can understand what he was going through. But it was very abusive on his leadership. And I just said, that's it. I'm done. I am done working for other people whose processes and principles I don't agree with. And I left. I jumped ship. It took everything I had in me at that time, because I had been so beaten down that I had no confidence left, no belief in myself. But I knew I couldn't keep going the way I was. And a couple of years before that, I had been to a work conference where Hannah Inman, I don't know if you know her, but she was on stage at this conference, and she was a coach, and she was talking about how a person can refine and recharge and reheal themselves, from within. The irony is I put my name in for a giveaway. The conference was thousands of people, and I was more concerned about getting to my next hour. So I left her session early. And about the time I was halfway down the hall, my colleagues told me she called my name, and I had won a $500 coaching session. And I regretted that for all the years that followed. And my husband remembered it. So when I quit this job, he says, I think it's time, that you call someone, call a coach, and figure out what it is you want, who you are, what direction you're going to go. Best decision of my life. Her name was Karen. She was phenomenal. She was, for me, she was exactly what I needed for me. No nonsense, didn't beat around the bush with me. Um, held me to, held me accountable to my words and my promises. And, the short story is, helped me understand that for 25 years, I had been following the dictate of a vice president from when I was 23, who said, if you don't make the C-suite, you're nothing.
What does
Those
that?
were his words.
What does the C-suite
That
mean?
means that if you don't end up as a COO or a CEO, an executive, a big boy at the big boys table, then don't call yourself a leader.
Right.
Which is complete and utter bunk, but I had believed that. And so I had worked towards that all my life, and my confidence just kept going down and down because I wasn't reaching it. Well, of course I wasn't reaching it, pursuing it for the wrong reasons. And too much of my heart forward, right? The boys at the table weren't prepared for that. So to get back to, coaching, I hinted to Karen, my coach, that, wow, I loved what she did. It was effective. It was helpful. Would it be possible to become a coach? What would I do? And here we are, 2.5 years later. I did what it took. I did the research. I got certified with the John Maxwell Leadership Group, and best decision ever.
That's just
so
to show you where you've come from, being stuck in an old belief system and smashing through all those challenges to get where you are. But also the fact that maybe in that journey too, did you start becoming more aware of the synchronicities, as most people call it? We would call it alignment because we know each other well enough to use that word.
mm-hmm.
That things were starting to line up for us when we're in the right flow of things.
Yes. I noticed it significantly when I left the job and made the decision to jump and follow my intuition, instinct, gut feel, whatever you want to call it, my heart, right? To go do what I wanted to do and not label it as anything that my corporate colleagues had labeled it, weak, so forth. I saw the value in it. As soon as that happened, everything started to align. And that's not to say that the last 2.5 years I haven't had ups and downs. You know that I have. I've kind of, like most coaches, tried to determine, where's my niche? Where do I really want to focus? And just recently, I just said, you know what? Let's get raw and real and figure it out. And that meant being so incredibly vulnerable with myself and with my husband, and knowing that other people were going to judge and fall away. And I did not care. I don't care, because I am finally doing what I love. And I get up every day now excited and smiling. And yeah, the alignment is there. And I recommend it to everybody.
It's one of those things, isn't it? There are limiting beliefs and the fears that we have about what other people are going to think about us. Mm-hmm. And that judgment stops us in our tracks from breaking through into what the life we want to create. And I think sometimes, people don't really understand what coaching's about. And like you say, I think once we get into that journey of coaching, we are constantly looking at what's going on with this, what do we need to improve. But the celebration is the part that I know I fall down with occasionally. It's kind of like, oh, I've done that now, I don't need to. But I think stopping and celebrating. And I think, because obviously we've known each other a while now, and to celebrate where you're at now, the decisions you've made and this niche that you've decided to work with and help, is just perfect, because you're getting the children and youth, I suppose they call themselves, right down before they even enter the system of whatever they pick. And you can help them navigate those situations, because we're always going to find that person who's going to try and put us down. And how you manage that with, do you know something? That's your belief, not mine. That's
well, that's so it's extremely empowering. And we have an epidemic in our country and in the United States, and I almost feel worldwide now, with what we're seeing happening in France and in the UK, where the elite rule, right? And they govern in corporate leadership in such a way that is so not in touch with the common, I'll call the common worker, the worker bee, the frontline, even middle management, right? And because they aren't in touch and they don't communicate the way that they should, you've got millions of people out here who are loyal, who are begging for work that they want to love. Nobody wants to come to work and then leave at the end of the day and feel like, what did I do? Was I worth anything? Did I accomplish anything? Gee, I got that diss from the boss above. We should be working to accommodate our lifestyles. Like for me, I work because I want to travel, and travel costs, right? If I'm going to invest that time in a job, in work, I want it to mean something. I want to get to the end of the day and know that something changed in the world for the good. And that could be for me, for someone else, for something tiny, right? And I realized in this last year that I was trying to appeal to those executive leaders who either don't, they're so far removed that they don't understand the message, right? And I was not feeling aligned. I was feeling frustrated. And frankly, I was feeling angry because I had a message I wanted to get across and no one was listening. How silly. And then it hit me when I did the raw work, right? I thought, we have to get to the youth. We have to help them understand their value and their worth, and and help them develop their skill sets, and help them develop a dream. Most of them don't even know what they want because they're following someone else's dream, much like I did, depending on how they were raised or their environment. And if we can do that, and executive leadership continues on like it does, at least we'll have a workforce that knows who they are and won't put up with the BS, and we'll do what you see a lot of Gen Z and young millennials doing right now, jumping ship early to go find a place that they're happy. And my generation and above, I've talked with several of them recently who say, well, they're entitled, they're lazy, they give up too easy. And when you pose the question back to them that says, what would you have done if you were in a place you weren't happy and being treated poorly, and believed that it was okay to leave and go do better for yourself somewhere else? What would we have done? But we didn't, because we were raised up by, my parents were raised by the generation that came from World War II, and that you gave everything you had, you stay where you're at, you stay in the job for 30 years, you get your pension. It doesn't matter how you're treated, just put your nose to the grindstone and do it. My generation said, that's BS. We can't work that way, because now we're in our 50s and 60s and exhausted and mentally struggling, and we don't want the same for our kids. So we're teaching our kids to do that. And what are they doing? Lo and behold, they're following our directive, right? They're going out and finding their way. They're not entitled. They're not lazy. They're asking for better and more, which is what they deserve, and which is what we couldn't do when we were younger.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. I mean, I remember, exactly, I can relate exactly to what you're saying, because I went to work for a job and I stayed in it for 7 years. And it was only when I was married and needed to look for a better salary where, that I actually pushed myself to leave, because of this was instilled in me. You stay there, you get a job and you stay there until you retire. And, there's something inside of us that suddenly goes, this isn't for me. This isn't what I want to do. But I mean, as most people, we've had a journey to get to where we're actually at now.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you work with your youth and helping them with these leadership skills, what does that course look like now for people? What will they expect when they get in touch with Beth Johnson for their leadership support?
What is amazing is that I'm certified through the John Maxwell Leadership Group. And if anyone knows who John Maxwell is, he's an international author, leadership expert. He has coached international leaders for years and years. He foresaw this issue in the mid 2000s, and I had no clue of it. I wasn't following that part of his business. And as a result, he's created youth programs that are based off of his best-selling programs, right? So intentional living, 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, everyone communicates, few connect. Then he's also added sometimes you win, sometimes you learn for teens, and leading from the lockers. And so he has pre-built programs that I can work with. If the youth is under 18, I work with the parent, right? We involve the parent and together decide which of these short courses would you like to take them through first. Because honestly, the youth they're not jaded. yet. They're excited. And so we see what they struggle with. They don't understand what they're struggling with, right? And so I take them through a short course first. Then when and if they're ready, then we can go into that's when I'd introduce the 21 laws of leadership and that type of thing, especially if they're older, especially if they're 18 to 25. They're headed into the workplace and have a vision and a dream. There's also the coolest thing, and I'm about to invest in this. It's a leadership game, and I was about to say everybody loves games, but then I'm hearing my husband going, "No, we don't." But I love games, and I find that age group likes games because you can put peers around the table, and they don't feel put on the spot. It's fun. And it teaches leadership and self-awareness all at the same time. And it is an amazing tool and an amazing program that I'll be taking into schools and youth programs throughout my region in the next probably 3 months.
That's brilliant. Well done.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have a conversation off here. How did you manage to maneuver that into schools? Because that's where I'm at right now.
Yep.
So, Beth, I've been asking people the odd question just to see, have you met anyone who really inspires you over the last year or two?
Yes. I've met multiple people. And I know you're probably wanting me to narrow it down to one, and I probably can, but I want to say this first. Coaching wouldn't be for everyone, but for those like us that have the heart to serve and the willingness and the desire, this community for me has been a lifesaver. And I would sit here and cry, and I'm not going to do that. Literally a lifesaver. So I have this group, and you're part of that. So I've got you and the other gents that are in our group, and another gal that she actually went back to corporate, but she and you all have you've reinstilled a hope in humanity for me. The youth I'm all about. I love them. Like I said, they're not jaded. They're ready. They've got, such chutzpah, if that's the word.
Yeah.
But I was so, I've just been so frustrated with the direction things are happening here and how we're at each other's throats all the time. And it's my way or the highway, and you're wrong and I'm right. And so even while I was learning about myself and understanding what's driving these people, I still found myself losing hope, right, in humanity. And it's every time I connect with my network of like-minded, like-hearted people like you guys that I walk away inspired again. And that's not phooey, right? That's not me saying that, for the listeners. There's actually a mess. What's that?
Can completely relate, Beth. You've been there for me too.
And there is a message in there to our listeners, which is, if you aren't surrounded by people like that, who inspire you, who make you want to do better, who you want to be held accountable by, and you want to hug every time you see them, you got the wrong network, right? Yeah. We need those people in our lives. We weren't meant to do any of this by ourselves. And so find the right people who are going to lift you up and inspire you. And that one coach that went back to leadership, she did an exercise with me that completely threw me off guard. Wasn't expecting it. We were in a normal conversation. She asked my permission to do something, and she had me going back and addressing my 6-year-old self in a way that was completely different than how I had been addressed when I was growing up, and healed a lot in me in minutes. I had to do the work afterwards, but it opened my eyes to a new way of thinking and a new way of living. And yeah, she completely inspired me to keep going.
That's Awesome. Well, Beth, thank you so much for joining me today. Tell everybody where they can find you, get in touch, and have these conversations with you who are interested in working with you.
The best way is to go to bethjohnsoncoaching.com. It is a website that actually is under construction. I'm going to be adding a lot more to it. I don't have all my youth programs up there yet, but there's a contact form, and you can easily reach out using that contact form, and I'll get back to you right away.
Well, that's absolutely brilliant. And thank you, Beth, for joining me today. And I hope
Thank you for having me, Di.
Back and we'll have another chat about this when we're a couple of months down the line and see how we're all both getting on with our different things. Because
sounds good.
As you know, I'm going to be launching Just Ask a Coach shortly. And this is why it's important for me for people to understand the power of coaching and how it helps us every single day when we have obstacles. Do you get in the obstacle or do you just respond to what's going on? And teaching those skills, those are life skills for every moment. It's not just, why would I need coaching for, something to do with work? Because most people think of coaching for sports, as you know, and unless you've been in an environment like the corporate side of things, where you get a coach for different aspects of that. Getting down to the youth and teaching them about coaching, that to me is so, so powerful. So well done.
Thank you. It's exciting.
It is exciting, isn't it? So thank you very much, Beth.
Thank you for having me, Di. I really appreciate it.
You take good care. Bye now.
You too.